Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Dan Parks with Yrefy. How you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing well. Any day I get to start talking with you early in the morning is a good day.
I guess being on the West Coast, I do get you up fairly early for these recordings. And Dan, I've had the opportunity to get to know you through the years, but for anyone who has not been as lucky as me, could you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Sure. Let's start at the beginning. Graduate from the University of Nebraska at Omaha through the Nebraska system. Did go to Creighton Law School for a moment, but chose that not as my long-term solution. So I came out, graduated. I was working as a private investigator. Found some time off, went to California. Me and a buddy ran out of money, had to find a job. Got a job working for a financial collection agency in 1987. Did that for 9 months. Moved up all the way up into a manager position. Then I got called back home to be a police officer, which is what my degree was there. And I did that for 3 years, and I was going to come down to be a Glendale Police Department down here in beautiful sunny Arizona. And I broke my hand playing softball, and it means I couldn't get going. So I came and happened to be the same guy I worked for in LA was working here in Phoenix. He said, "Why don't you come over here and help me out for 3 or 4 months?" Well, by the time I started doing that, he asked me if I wanted to be a manager again, and that paid more than a police officer. And that's pretty much how I got doing this. Worked for financial collection agencies for a while. They finally moved me up to Detroit, where I was the youngest general manager for the financial collection agencies. At that time, they had over 100 agencies, believe it or not. They're one of the larger three of the time for agencies. Did that. They started melting down offices one at a time. By the time I left Detroit in 95, it was, I think there was only 16 agencies left at financial collection agencies. So that was a quick demise.
Okay.
Detroit did well. They shut down that office. I came down and started working for Van Roo Credit Corporation, where I worked there for 13 years. Moved up from the general manager of the Arizona office, which we built into about 250 people. And then I took over as the chief operating officer of Van Roo, basically 5 years after that. And flourished there. The company flourished, and everything else for the United States Department of Education was obviously a very large part of that. Did that for 7 years. Then I went to go work for NCO. Did that, work in Department of Education again, which has always been kind of the backbone of whatever I did. Did well there. Moved on to a company called Gatestone. Did that for 7 years. And then I got out of collections and moved into loans, which is where I came to be at Yrefy. So very happy here.
So Yrefy, it sounds like you've had a lot of time working in the student loan space, right? Department of Education, Van Roo, like you've spent a lot of time in student loans, and now you're on the lending side of the student loan industry. Could you tell everyone a little bit about Yrefy and what it is that you do there?
Yeah, well, I am the executive vice president of Yrefy. I run the operations department. I'm also probably the main face that deals with all the our clients, agencies, things like that. Everything basically front facing with the things. Due to working as many years as I have in the industry, I've developed a lot of people that I've gotten to know over the years, like yourself, and all the good people that go to all the conferences, and a lot of them actually came up underneath me or with me. and it's good to see all those people all the time. And it's actually one of my biggest accomplishments, if you ask me, is the amount of people that you see in the industry that actually one time worked with me or for me during the years.
It's a very small
It
world that we
very,
live
very
in the collections, recovery, and lending space. Talk to me a little bit about, from a Y refi perspective, how it is that you're working with the borrowers and the
well.
consumers.
Why Refi is came up with a unique way of doing business. We target people that are distressed and defaulted, and
Mhm.
that is the main person. Our average FICO scores are very low. It's about 525 of the person that we actually give loans to. Um,
Okay.
we work with the agencies or the servicers or the debt buyer or the whoever actually is holding on to the account. We work with them on taking care of the loan with them. We give the borrower a new loan, and
Mhm.
we give distressed and defaulted borrowers a very low interest loan. Our goal is to get people out of debt, not get them deeper into
Mhm.
debt. uh, our average loan is about 3.5% fixed.
Wow.
So we have done, if you go onto our website, you see lots of testimonials of people that we pretty much put on, the path of, being a debtor is very expensive. We've all learned that.
Mhm.
And getting out of underneath that, especially where you couldn't, has really helped people get to where they want to go in life and get them out of their mom's basements or whatever it is, and get them going in a forward flow of you know of of, of getting this behind them and being able to be part of producing people. And when you have a
Helping
debt,
keep them one foot in front of the other,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's exactly it. The thing is, we came into being is we saw that the United States Department of Education had all kinds of routes for getting people out of debt. And about
Mhm.
basically 87 to 85% of all debt is federal. They had ways of getting people out of debt. They had the consolidations, they had the rehabilitations. Sometimes they allowed you to do them a couple times. Um,
Mhm.
Whereas if you once you got on a private student loan and you became defaulted, you you were defaulted. So you could
Mhm.
either come up with a settlement or come up with payment arrangements where it'd still sit on your credit report as the whole time you're making credit arrangements. Or you could go to, if you came out of college, you have this debt and you hadn't really nowhere to go because your credit wasn't great because you had this sitting on there. So um, they they had nowhere to go. And we gave them, as far as I know, we came up and gave them a place to go without going out and getting a high dollar interest rate loan to get them further in debt.
So you provide them with an opportunity for an exit strategy, because like you're saying, the federal student loans have rehabilitation programs and options for getting back on
Hmm.
track, so to speak. But one on the private side, it's the same as if you go delinquent on a credit card. You're just kind of
And collections.
in a position now where you got to find your own solution. Can I settle my way out of this? And what you're providing is this opportunity to improve their overall experience. Now, let's talk about it from the borrower's perspective, right? So the borrower had no options. Now they have some options. What kind of terms do you see on the loans like that, right? Like, I know my student loans were on, I want to say, a 20-year span.
Well, believe it, we
Um,
started going up to 20 years. Before that, it was 10 years.
okay.
But we try to customize each and every loan to the borrower. A lot
Okay.
of these borrowers got in their situation because somebody kind of held their hand to begin with, and then they let them go. We know
Mhm.
that we are trying to turn somebody into a full-fledged borrower that's going to be with us for a long time. We're marrying these people, from anywhere from 3 to 20 years. And during that whole time, we believe in having as many touches with them as possible and to get all their
Mhm.
questions answered. Don't leave it up. Our biggest thing that we have to overcome, believe it or not, is most of our borrowers have been turned down by everybody, mom, dad, grandma,
Mhm.
credit union, uh, one of the other lenders, they've been turned down. So our biggest problem is trying to get over the too good to be true um,
Mm.
problem. And it
It's probably going to take a lot of
and our
education.
first conversation with the borrower normally lasts up to an hour. So there's a
Okay.
lot of education, a lot of questions, answering questions that they don't even know they had. But we try to get,
Yeah.
we over communicate, and we over communicate with all of our people that forward loans to us or ask us to help out these borrowers and things like that, which are the collection agencies, some of the servicers directly, um, a ton of debt buyers, and now we recently started dealing with a lot more with attorneys. Attorneys are becoming a large
Mhm.
part of the collection industry. And they're getting bigger and bigger all the time. So,
Well, it seems like you guys are basically in a position where you're educating the educated, right? So these people took out student loans, and now somebody has to come in and kind of explain to them what those options really look like. And I would assume that the education portion of that is one of the biggest, not only hurdles that you have to overcome, but the method by which you're overcoming the hurdle of demonstrating why
mhm.
this is too good to be true. But that's got to have something to do with the way that you're funding and financing the lending side of this in order to put loans out on the street at 3.5% for 20 years.
Yes. Well, the 20 years ones are going to be close. We don't have any loans that are over 6%.
Wow.
And some of our loans are one below 1% if they're a short, quick loan.
Hmm.
So, the whole idea to begin with is to get the borrower out of debt. Now that means that we're going to have to take some haircuts, and along with the agencies are going to have to take some haircuts. But the borrowers overall, and before we came around, were just getting, if they were going to go out and get a loan, they were going to get a loan. It was going to be a high interest loan, a very, very high interest
Hmm.
loan, which doesn't do much to get the borrower out of it. Most people we're giving loans to are getting, well, everybody we're giving a loan to has a lower interest rate with Yrefy than they did originally when they had good credit when they took out the loan.
Interesting. I mean, I would think a lot of the student loan borrowers are doing that initial borrowing at very early in their credit cycle, right before they've had an opportunity to really
Mm-hmm.
establish
And that's
themselves
true,
as, as not a financial
which is
risk.
the reason why once they let this one default, they have nothing else to go on because they got out of college, something else came up, and they have nowhere to go. This is sitting on their credit, and it's it. But it's still sitting there,
Well, with
and
so
it
many
doesn't
students,
go away.
I was gonna say, with so many students getting getting credit cards
Mm-hmm.
handed to them
Yes,
as they show up on campus. Now they've got the student loan. They've probably got some sort
true.
of balance or delinquency related to that credit card. It kind of puts people off at a soft footing to get started. Now, I know, kind of as my student loan expert of the day here, one of the hot button issues that we're hearing a lot about, last year, and again, I'm sure we're going to hear significantly more about it going into the election cycle this year, but it's the student loan forgiveness. What does that actually mean in terms of the borrowers and their experience? It feels like it's
Well, I'm not,
not quite everything it's packaged up to be.
because it's not. The forgiveness is a very small portion of what the whole total
Mhm.
debt is. Just when you put out something like, we forgave $60 million, that's a lot of money to a lot of people. You know,
Mhm.
600 million even. But in the whole scheme of what the student loan debt, which is $17 trillion, it's really, really not a lot. I'm not going to get too political
It's a
about
drop
it,
in the bucket.
everything else, but it's still a debt, and it's still not going to go away, and it needs to be taken care of. And most of it was with schools, and just it didn't, just because it gets forgiven as a federal loan, it didn't get forgiven any private student loans at all.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I would think, even from a forgiveness standpoint, it kind of maybe sets the wrong expectation for a borrower, that, like, oh, there's student loan forgiveness, I'm having my loan forgiven, when in the reality is it's a small portion of the loan. The debt's still
yes,
owed, payments are still due. And, do you find yourself, as someone who is educating consumers on their student loans, do you find that to be an additional hurdle that needs to be
all the time.
overcome?
all the time. That's part of our first hour long conversation is people are asking all these questions. I mean, because they're hearing it everywhere. You're hearing it on the news, you're
Mhm.
hearing it on radio. You have people that are even telling you to call them up and then they charge you money to go help them walk you through this process. Um, and the fact of the matter is if you have a private student loan, it's staying. Um,
Mhm.
no matter what it goes. And obviously, debt buying is becoming a very large part of the private student loan arena. And, and they've done a very good job of vetting the um, the debt buyers, and obviously they're using some of the best agencies out there. Um, but it's an education process because there is so much misinformation out there that the borrowers are getting. I mean, they're just getting pummeled with, oh, well, this is going to go away. I shouldn't take care of it. And that's just not the case. And I wish that we could actually have an open dialogue, with the general population, because, the fact of the matter is it's not going to away. And even if the federal government does something, it's not going to go away on the private side. So,
Well, I don't even think it's going to go away on the federal side. You'll see small bits and pieces, maybe, and separate from the political statement. I think it becomes an educational issue. And back to your original point of being an educator, it was about 2 years ago. I hired groups of people of all different demographics and age groups to go out and find me, quote unquote, financial literacy content online. What do you consider to be good financial literacy content? And what came back to me shocked me to my core. It was a lot of bad information on YouTube and link and TikTok and Instagram that were basically talking about, well, if a debt buyer bought it, it's their debt now.
yep.
What are you talking about? That's terrible advice to be giving to people. And
And
I
it
look at
is,
some
and
of
it's
these
not only that, it's
headlines.
rampant. It's rampant too.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not going to pick on any of them because they're all just letting people put in their 2 cents worth,
Mhm.
and you have regular day to day people that are that are portraying themselves as experts, and it's just a lot of bad information. And I don't know how to stem it because of social media. It's anybody can go out there and put in a thing, and you don't know who's the expert, who's not, or if it worked for them, it doesn't mean it's going to work for every other person.
I would like to think if people want to get some real expert advice, they might want to watch this podcast because we're bringing on the greatest and the greatest minds of the receivables management industry to talk about some of these things. And maybe we get a little bit
Mm-hmm.
complex sometimes in the way that we discuss it from a B2B environment. But I think that educational process for the consumers is something that the receivables management industry on the whole has really prided itself on trying to constantly help the consumers. Each one of the associations has financial literacy content available: ACA, RMAI, NCBA, right? Myself personally, with the Money Chat series that we've drafted about 50 articles on the topics.
Isn't it interesting that the collection industry is the one that is giving the most accurate, good information out to the actual borrowers? And and the sad part is probably the last person that they want to actually listen to. But I mean, the collection industry is who the federal government went out to actually service all these accounts. I mean, we all started out as collections on there for the federal government, with 23 and then down to 16. Um, and they then sooner or later they took these agencies and they turned them into basically servicing and educating people.
Mhm,
And and then it turned into, we're only going to educate the people that actually call and ask us. We don't want to go reach out to the people
mhm,
that are in default and have a conversation with them about options. And trust me, the federal government gives them lots of options to get out of
mhm.
this and get it back to being at least marked as a current account and forgiving a lot of the late fees and everything else. So, there's just so many options, but we're not doing a very good job reaching out and having that touch, where we can educate people, because I think you get some really good information just coming from the collection industry itself, who have now turned
Well, it
into
sounds like you're spending a lot
CTO.
of time. Well, agreed. It sounds like you're spending a lot of time and energy actually helping to improve this consumer experience, to empower the people in your organization to educate those
Yes.
consumers as those opportunities arise.
Anybody that's having the touch with the borrowers is is
Mhm.
is enjoys their job immensely, because we are taking somebody normally in the lower socioeconomic, and able to lift them, and get them to go where they didn't think they had a chance to go. Like I said earlier, being a debtor is very, very expensive. And people think it's cheap because you didn't pay your bills. Well, it's not. When you're buying a 1974 Dodge Dart for the same price you could get a new Corolla, and it gets expensive, and we also help heal a lot of things. A lot of these people got these loans with mom, dad, grandma, aunts,
Mhm.
and it's caused strife. And getting this all taken care of, where it's all wrapped up and everything else, gives the borrower and whoever co-signed with them relief, and heals a lot of relationships, so, which is nice. So what we're doing here at Yrefy is a very, very good thing.
I agree. It sounds like you guys are on the right path to helping consumers improve their experience as a student loan borrower. I want to thank you, Dan, for coming on and having a chat with me today. Your expertise is always greatly appreciated. For those of you that are watching, if you have additional questions you'd like to ask Dan or myself, you can leave those in the comments below. Or if you have additional topics you'd like to see us discuss, you can leave those in the comments on LinkedIn and YouTube. And hopefully, I can get Uncle Dan to come back at least one more time to help me continue to create great content for a
I
great
would
industry.
love to. I would love to. Anytime
Well,
we get to
we would
talk, we
love
have
to
a good
have you
time.
back. Exactly. I always appreciate your presence. But thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise. I hope that some consumers out there that are student loan borrowers get an opportunity to see this as well and learn a little something from it about the options that they do have for refinancing and getting out of a delinquent position. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all again soon. Thanks,
Have a
Dan.
good one.